where so many people have applied, but you want to be selected. Pharmacy not only looks at drugs or patients, but it is the amalgamation of the two. It is the combination of the sciences and the people, right? That being said, if an anecdote is really useful, then go forth. If you were a carer, if you worked in care, or if you really did take care of your grandma, a whole paragraph about COVID that could have been avoided. But if you're going to mention COVID, maybe talk about how the roles and responsibilities of pharmacists have been affected, and you could see a direct impact that COVID had. In order to better understand drugs, we need to know how they interact. When they want to see that you are sure in yourself, which as an 18-year-old who is, it's all about pretend. Like, you are sure in yourself, but you're more sure about why you went into pharmacy, because there's so many people who get rejected. So why do you deserve a place? Welcome to my Real Lifestyle Academia channel. My name is Agapi, like the love. If you're new, then welcome. This is a safe space, but if you're not, welcome back to my channel. It is that time of year again where students are biting their nails, thinking, anticipating about their future and their prospects for success. But that basically means it's time for your personal statements. It's time to start applying for university. And so I figured today's video is going to be giving you guys a really good breakdown. I think it's good though, a breakdown of how to write a really good personal statement and a pharmacy one. There's so many videos online on how to write personal statements. This is not something that's new, but this one is very geared towards pharmacy and making sure that you write your best pharmacy personal statement. I took this video really seriously. I have a notebook. Look at my personalized notebook from Papier. It says my name over there and it says notebook. But anyway, yeah, if I look down, it's only because I made notes on this video. And so I want to make sure that like I tackle all the things, do it in a very organized fashion, so we aren't here for 700 years. And also I'm going to be drinking some water because I talk a lot and my mouth is going to get really dry. So let's go. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to tell you is not to sell yourself, because you know that already. There's so many personal statements. Again, if you want ones that are generic and ones that are not pharmacy specific, then this is not the personal statement video for you. This one is directed towards pharmacy students who are trying to get a specific edge or are trying to differentiate themselves from other people, even if you didn't do a lot of things to make you stand out. This is very pharmacy related. This is very pharmacy specific. You could even argue it's pharmacology specific or medicine, but it's very geared towards pharmacy. Throughout your personal statement, I want you to be asking yourself two questions, as in every paragraph, every line, every two connecting sentences that you write, you need to be asking yourself these two questions as you write, as you write and as you go along. The first question is why me, and the second is why pharmacy. I didn't mean for it to rhyme, but that is the thing. So as you go through your whole paragraph by paragraph, you need to make sure that you're answering the questions why me and why pharmacy. Those are like the two most broad questions, right? And then we're going to separate it into the different spheres and like the different components and categories that you could be discussing. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to read you my one and see if I did what I'm asking you to do. What is the actual content that you want to include in your personal statement, right? So I have 4 that are like the main ones. So if you can try and get 3 within those 4, I actually would say all 4 of them, to be fair, all 4 of them, right? Yeah, literally trying your best to get all 4 in there. So the first one I said, it's your subjects. I'm going to go into detail with all 4 of them. Subjects, your second one is personal life, your third one is work experience, and your fourth one is extracurriculars or pharmacy things. The fifth one is COVID, but again, as I go into depth with all of them, you will see how that could be one that's overdone, or it could be one that could actually enhance your personal statement depending on how you want to do it, right? Is subjects. What about the subject that you're doing? What about the 2 years of you studying it at A-level, at A-level degree, or previously at GCSE degree led you to want to, so you're talking about why me, but led you to want to pursue pharmacy, right? Within chemistry, within biology, within maths, those are the ones that I did, so I can speak from that experience, right? You can talk about how the organic chemistry of pharmacy, or you can talk about the chiral chemistry component of your A-level chemistry really ignited a passion for wanting to learn about you can talk about how the chiral carbon component of A-level chemistry ignited a desire or a passion to research further into how drug development, the importance of drug development, and the importance of drug development. And you can talk about thalidomide if you want to, or you can talk about the importance of manufacturing drugs, taking into mind the fact that drugs can change structure or composure once they are in different forms, right? So you're talking about how it excited or ignited a passion or a desire, or something, it interested you, right? But then you're also linking it to pharmacy. You can do that with biology. You can talk about how certain structures in the body, and talk about how pharmacy is pharmacy not only looks at drugs or patients, but it is the amalgamation of the two. It is the combination of the sciences and the people, right? In order to better understand drugs, we need to know how they interact with the human body, how certain structures can either complement drugs or can reduce the impacts of certain drugs. That's all biology that you can talk about, right? So why doing A-level biology? How did that better lead you to the road that is pharmacy, right? Same with maths. Pharmacy, there's so much maths in pharmacy. There's so much from the calculation section to being able to diagnose patients accurately, because diagnose and also prescribe, and making sure patients don't overdose, because you're doing accuracy checking. These are all the things that you need to know, and your math skills only increase as you do pharmacy. You just deal with a different type of maths, but your math skills continue, right? So how did you do the subjects that you're doing? How did they further aid you into deciding that pharmacy was for you? Because there's no point in saying I did bio pharmacy, there's no point in saying I did chemistry bio physics, or chemistry bio art, chemistry bio dance, chemistry art and computing. There's no point in listing things, because a computer can list, I can list, a baby can list. There has to be a way in which you link it directly to why you wanted to do pharmacy. Personal life, this one can link into everything that you do, right? Personal life doesn't necessarily mean you talking about how your grandma, if this really happened to you, then I'm really sorry. I'm trying to be satirical, but if this is really your case, then I'm so sorry. But talking about how your grandma had a fall, and then you had to look at the drugs that were treating her, or if you worked in care, it could be that, right? It could be. But when I say personal life, I don't want you guys to be limited to your specific anecdotal experiences, because there's so much more that you can do with that, right? You can talk about how things how you were passionate about something, or how you engaged in something. Oh, I need to sit properly. How you were passionate about something, how you engaged in something, how something made you want to further research, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be an anecdote. However, that being said, if an anecdote is really useful, then go forth. If you were a carer, if you worked in care, or if you really did take care of your grandma with her maybe she has dementia, maybe she has something, and you could see the degenerative like processes that went through, and how maybe that really did want you to start thinking about how you can start thinking about like the neuroscience aspect of certain pathways, right? It could, so it could or it couldn't, but don't let that if that isn't your story, if that isn't the case, don't let that deter you from maybe having personal like personal little bits and things within your personal statement, right? It needs to be personal. We need to see your heart in this, because they only see your name, sometimes barely, they just see your number, right? But you want to be able to get the person's perspective from the paper. This person needs to be real, needs to be a fully fledged like human, you know, not just this generated thing. So we need to see some heart in it. That's what I mean by personal. But now I see the irony of it being called a personal statement, so it has to be. In personal, I also added the bit about the skills required to be a pharmacist, and this was really funny because what I did, I remember I googled this and I was like, skills that it requires to be a pharmacist, and there's a whole bunch of skills. There's empathy, there's teamwork, there's time management, there's resilience, there's endurance, there's the mathematical skills, there's the a whole bunch of skills, right? I literally listed it and I was like, okay, how can I add these skills? How can I interweave these skills into my personal statement? And that was the personal sector. So how can I make sure I'm including things about how I did time management in the things that I did, how I showed empathy, how in a certain way I showed resilience, through the experiences and through the things that you share within your personal statement. So that's why the personal element is not going to be its own paragraph. It's always going to be in your thing, because one of the questions is why me, and the me is personal. So we want to know why you specifically you chose to do pharmacy. My third one is work experience, and this is the thing is, so this is the thing, you don't necessarily have to have work experience to be in your personal statement, right? You don't have to, because finding work experience is really tough. When I was in year 12 looking, I knew so many people who had an aunt or an uncle who was a GP, or is it this, or their mom was a doctor, or this, or this is this, and I was like, yeah, no, I literally can't relate. But there's so many different like webinars and things that you can do, that you don't necessarily have to be in a pharmacy. You can try shadow a pharmacist, work in a pharmacy, but if you can't and you didn't have access to that, I don't want you to be deterred by that. You can try online work experiences, things you can try emailing people that you know to try and give you some insight, and also if you were like me and you thought you wanted to do medicine in year 12, this is very specific, and you shadowed a doctor, but later realized that isn't what you wanted to do, right? Don't let that like deter you. I don't know how many times I said deter, but don't let that hinder you from including work experience things in your personal statement. From the need that comes with how diverse England is, these are the skills that I learned from being a translator, from translating through my grandmother, for working at the community, whatever, right? In all of those like activities, there isn't a way that you can't link it to pharmacy. You're gonna find a way to do it. I know you will. And you might be like, oh, this is a bit redundant, but it's like, no, that's the whole point. They want to see that you are sure in yourself, which as an 18-year-old who is, it's all about pretend. Like, you are sure in yourself, but you're more sure about why you want to do pharmacy, because there's so many people who get rejected. So why do you deserve a place? That ended so abruptly, but why did you deserve a place at that university studying that degree where so many people have applied, but you want to be selected? That was a nice way to end it. So in the extracurriculars also / pharmacy things, right? This was how it linked to the if you didn't have work experience. Guys, literature. When you go into pharmacy, you're gonna have to look at like medical text and all of that stuff, not in as much depth as I would like to, right? The girls and guys, they can't read. Like, they really can't read and write medical journals, medical text. They really can't. But anyway, that's another point for another day. as I was saying, books. There's books that you could read. I didn't actually include it in my personal statement. I don't think I did. But books like Bad Farmer. There's even shows that you can watch like Dope Sick, which deals with the opioid crisis in America. Like from a show, you don't have to mention the show's name, but you can talk about how the opioid crisis was inflamed or heightened because of pharmaceutical industry's greed, or because of the power struggle, or something, right? So there's literature, there's so many books, there's so many things in just medical reading and writing that you can include in your personal statement. And you know what you could do, right? You could literally pick up a medical book, unless you have interviews. However, this is where it gets tricky, right? So if you want to include the Bad Farmer and you talk about maybe the first couple of chapters in your interview could have read the whole Bad Farmer, and he could have told you like, what are your thoughts on the final chapter, and maybe you didn't read the final chapter. So maybe be careful with that. If you're going to include a book, make sure ideally you read the whole book. That's why I think it's easier to include journal articles, because you could read a journal article or you could read bits of a journal article, but a whole book, sometimes it could be iffy. Imagine the author of that book is like, oh, okay, so what did you think about page that just like realistically won't happen, but in my mind I'm like, what if it did, and like, what would I say? But right? But if you didn't have access to work experience, which I think they need to understand that not everybody does, you reading a book, you watching a show, you trying to engage in like the cultural like nowness, I don't know if that's a word, but like the recent, if something happened recently, include that in, right? It shows that you're going above and beyond. It shows that you have a passion for this. It shows that you, I hate the word passion now because of how many times I've used it, but it shows that you have a deep understanding that the pharmaceutical industry, pharmacy, the NHS is constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. There are new medicines that are being introduced. There are new journal articles that are being written about the implications of certain drugs. Like there's that constant learning. Again, a skill that you could put in. You see, the way you talk about it needs to just be a little bit different. So you can talk about how pharmacy is, what I like about pharmacy, not in these words, you know, but like the ever-growing learning aspect of it. Because just as we are discovering more about drugs, we're discovering more about the bodies, about cancers, about tumors, about growths. I just said the same word 3 times. However, and with that comes the constant aspect of you're always learning more things, and you can talk about how the landscape for pharmacy now versus 50 years ago didn't look the same. Whoa, let's take a deep breath. COVID. The thing is, COVID is very real. COVID still affects people. People just don't want to do testing, but COVID is very real. So with COVID, there's things that you can talk about COVID, but if you're going to mention COVID, you have to mention it in a way that, again, why me, why pharmacy, right? Because again, you can waffle a whole paragraph about COVID that could have been avoided. But if you're going to mention COVID, maybe talk about how the roles and responsibilities of pharmacists have been affected, and you could see a direct impact that COVID had on the increased pressures that pharmacists faced. And maybe you witnessed this and you saw that pharmacy is a very demanding career, yes, but there's also a lot of pressures that come with it because of the new responsibilities that come with pharmacy. And so I just got a text message, sorry. And so you can talk about that in COVID. What else did I write about COVID? Yeah, again, so how the landscape of pharmacy as we know it is changing, but it's changing like last year versus this year versus next year. It changes within months of what pharmacies, what pharmacists can do, but also it impacts retail pharmacy, it impacts hospital pharmacies, it impacts GP pharmacists, because I was gonna say because it just does. No, but it really does, because they're trying to lower the burden of GPs, because the GP appointment queues are just incredibly intense. So with the allocation of resources in vaccine clinics and things like that in pharmacies, you could really see the impact of how things are changing. And this was interesting to me because it illustrated that pharmacy continues to evolve and change as new technologies come about, as the world changes. So do we adapt. Yeah. one more thing I want to add: if you are studying pharmacy next year or the year after, whenever you watch this video, you're going to become an independent prescriber after you finish your course. My year is going to be the first year that graduates with the IP by our name, which means we can prescribe independently, and with that you can also talk about that again. It showcases the constantly evolving degree that we constantly evolving career that we're in, the career path, but you can also talk about the responsibilities and the need to ensure that we are constantly going back to our books in order to safely prescribe. Prescribing is something that is not an easy thing. It's not something that should just be done willy-nilly. These are lives at risk, and that is something that you can include. The independent prescribing thing, because I was gonna say because yes, but oh, okay, lovely people, I'm going to read my personal statement out to you guys. If my personal statement was actually terrible, then that would be hilarious. I don't think it will be hilarious, but if it's bad and you're like, you know what, there's things that you could have changed, and I'm like, you know what, I actually agree with you. But if it's good, then amazing, it's good. But let me read my personal statement. Again, we want to see why me, why pharmacy. I don't know if I'll stop after every paragraph to highlight certain things or if I'll just say them out loud, but let's just go. Okay, let me start. Or I'll highlight the main 5 points if I mention them, which I didn't mention COVID because we were living through COVID, so you can't talk about COVID while it's happening. It's just a bit weird, you know. So yeah, let me start. It says, the road which led me to pharmacy was not a linear one. I've known from a young age that I wanted to work in a healthcare sector. However, it became evident to me that pharmacy was the best fit after months of careful consideration. First paragraph, why me, why pharmacy, something personal, that it wasn't an easy route or whatever. And yeah, why pharmacy? Okay, my passion for pharmacy was initially ignited by my interest in the biological sciences, as well as a great desire to help people live better lives. The chiral carbon topic in A-level chemistry was a great example of the application of scientific knowledge in medicine, so thalidomide. But I didn't mention thalidomide because that's such an obvious example. Showing the amalgamation of organic chemistry and the study of ensuring the safe distribution and usage of medicines. So that's talking about how you can understand the roles of pharmacists. So don't be hesitant to Google what do pharmacists do, and try and include that in, right? Because that, yeah. Okay, the mathematical and biological skills practiced in my other 2 A-levels give insight to the future, where I will be using components such as weight, gender, severity of conditions to advise and suggest dosage medications. So you see, I didn't say A-level chemistry, biology, chemistry, A-level chemistry, A-level biology, A-level maths. I said the skills that I'll use in these ones. So I could have done psychology, because I say biological skills. I could have done psychology because they talk about bio and psychology, but you wouldn't know. Or physics. I could have, but anyway, so I just didn't list them. I said how those implemented and how they impacted me, and how they'll help in pharmacy. Next paragraph. Whilst the career in pharmacy is demanding, requires hard work, the ability to adapt to new technologies, as well as being able to work in multidisciplinary teams, I believe that it will be incredibly rewarding, dispensing, prescribing, as well as teaching patients about the importance of treatment. Their paragraph is just very fluffy. I talked about skills and roles. So you see skills that are needed for a pharmacist, and also roles. So the skills you would need, but then also what you'll be doing. So dispensing, prescribing, and teaching patients, because that's what you do. You do consultations. Okay. This is the thickest one. During my holiday, I was able to participate in a week of work experience at Glenfield Hospital's prenatal intensive care unit. Even though the work experience was under the pretense of shadowing a doctor, that was the experience that I told you guys about. I was able to see the skills that would be required of a pharmacist. I witnessed morning discussions with multidisciplinary teams, as well as seeing them resolve conflict, which gave me an indication of the importance of teamwork when working alongside healthcare professionals of various degrees, right? You had surgeons, you had pharmacists, you had nurses on the ward rounds, you had junior doctors, you had people with different levels all being able to impact one case. Anyways, let's get back to it. A young cancer survivor with pre-existing heart conditions came in for a consultation with queries about how his medication could affect his heart. So that's an anecdotal thing, but let's see how we deal with it. Aside from the biological interest of this case, the fact that he was 12 and had completed remission, witnessed 2 friends succumb to their cancers, allowed me to empathize with him, not only as a patient, but as someone who had gone through trauma. I would therefore understand the apprehension he would have to take medication. So we deal with this a lot in pharmacy as to why people would want to take, why people would not want to take medications. So anyways, so it's another point to see like how does this lead to me being able to understand it, but also how does this lead to pharmacy. Anyways, having this insight would allow me to approach the situation as a pharmacist to advise about the importance of diligently taking medication with the correct level of empathy. Being able to understand that, okay, you might not take it because you saw your 2 friends because of chemo, because of this, you understand. Right, that was the thick paragraph. So again, it was anecdotal, however it led directly towards pharmacy. So if you're going to give anecdotes, they can't just be just because, for the sake of just doing it. There you go. Now it's a little bit of a braggy one. We're talking about skills. So I mentioned the subjects one, mentioned personal, I mentioned work experience, which I just did in my paragraph. So I didn't do work experience in a pharmacy because I didn't know I wanted to do pharmacy by the time when I entered year 13 and I was applying. Then I decided, you know what, pharmacy is for me. But I still had to talk about work experience. Okay, so the next one is going to be extracurriculars. So I said I am very well-rounded, having participated in various extracurricular activities whilst developing my leadership, teamwork and communication skills. I participate in photography, having been awarded 2nd place in my Leicester Rotary Young Photographers competition. Orchestra and debating, placing in the top 70 schools in the Oxford International Competition. With regards to leadership, I am head of debating and deputy head girl for this next academic year, balancing organizing activities for the school as well as maintaining my results has always been a priority for me and will continue to be as I head into pharmacy. So that was a very braggy paragraph. We still want to be able to sell ourselves, right? Can't be a little bit too modest. Modest is good, but if you're trying to really get into a place, you've got to showcase what you do, right? But that was all to say, all of those things that I listed was just to say that I understand that this degree is going to be tough, but I'm going to be able to balance it because I've been able to balance things for this whole time, you know. Last paragraph. Pharmacy combines my interest in caring for patients as well as the academic skills needed within the job. This is my favorite. My ending sentence is my favorite. Sorry, I keep stopping. This pathway requires skills such as hard work, time management and empathy, skills which I've spent years working towards and want to continue to nurture. So it's I've been doing this. Let a sister continue, please let a sister continue. And that was my personal statement. I remember when I was doing a draft, I wanted to mention Big Pharma, but then I was scared that because I've read a couple chapters, and I was like, what if they interview me? And to be fair, in my interviews they didn't ask that much. They wanted to just get to know me, but I have a whole video on interviews separately. But yeah, as you guys can see, I didn't mention COVID, as I said, didn't happen. But subjects I did, personal life I did, you interweave that always. Work experience I did, and extracurriculars and pharmacy stuff I did. And again, why me and why pharmacy? You want to make sure you're tackling both of those questions in every single paragraph, even if it's the shortest or the longest. And if you guys want to see structure wise, this is how it looked. Oh, can you guys see it? It's this was the thick one, my work experience one, but can you guys see? Okay, there you go. So yeah, it wasn't super do the 3 paragraph thing. I'm not fast on structure, I'm fast on content, what you're actually putting in, because some people's personal statements, it just shows up as a blob. It doesn't separate even into paragraphs. So just make sure you're getting the content in that you need to, and you'll be alright. But yeah, if you do guys have any personal statement queries or questions, or you want to ask me to read through it when I am available, which I can. I've done this before last year. I read through 4 or 5 personal statements. So, and giving advice and tips and da. So if you do, let me know, email me, and yeah, I shall actually DM you on Instagram and I'll give you my email that you can use, because I don't want you to use the YouTube one. But anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, like, share, subscribe, do all of those amazing things, and I hope that you have a lovely day further.
Yeah.